Chambermains are finally catching a break. While we may not get the most love from the devs, they indirectly buffed Chamber by releasing the new map Abyss. This map is extremely op and lurk heavy, which are two of Chamber's best performing roles. Before the setups, let's cover how the map should be generally played. Unfortunately, on attack, the map is going to be very similar to how Icebox is played. You pick a site to stack and then have someone lurk mid. Mid just takes way too much utility to properly gain control of, and even then, just to get to a site you have to clear so many positions, making it not worth split pushing. Even though this is a bad map design, that's fine for Chamber. In fact, it's great, as on attack, one of Chamber's best roles is lurking. And since fights are so long in mid, the Operator and Headhunter will also be even more viable on attack. Without getting too much into the weeds, if you're able to control 2 out of the 3 lanes with Chamber, your job as a lurker is a success, as you can call for rotates and make the enemy's positioning more predictable. When not lurking, the next best role for Chamber will be the support role, since there will not be enough smokes to cover every angle. This will allow your teammates to safely scale up site, and once again, the long side angles make attack opping viable. On defense, the map is played pretty straightforward. You'll either get your teammates to assist you in getting into an aggressive first blood position, solo hold mid, or play a multi-frag position in that order. With the map basics out of the way, let's get into the Chamber tech. For each setup, I'm going to go over when to use it, ideal weapons, and the variations. Let's start on B site. The first setup is an aggressive first blood setup that is best paired with some initiator utility. This is ideal for save rounds when you have a headhunter or an op round. It's important to place your trip in window or have your team smoke or hold it. If your trip goes off, you have to TP, but try taking a fight before you do. This setup grants a lot of map control and allows for quick flanks. Make sure you hold it for a little bit before pushing though. The next setup is a bonus round setup where you'll need a shotgun and a headhunter. The Bucky has a little bit more range than the Judge, so keep that in mind. There's also an off-angle variation with this setup that would be good for any round. And lastly, here are some default TP setups that are good to just keep the enemies on their toes and are basically meant for any round. Now for mid on defense, there are 2 main setups. The first is a ratty setup that is technically good with any weapon, but a shotgun and headhunter is preferable. This is not a position where you are a rotator. If there are enemies on another site, you should remain in this position to hunt for a lurker. Once you escort your teammate who is rotating from the other site through mid, then you can rotate if you want. There are just too many angles to try to rotate through mid by yourself with this setup. The next setup is ideal for op rounds or save rounds where you have headhunter bullets. If you notice mid lurkers or split pushes, this setup will shut them down. On A site, we have Chamber's strongest setup, but there's a caveat. You need your team. You will have to have a Sky Flash, Fault Line, Leer, Cascade, just some piece of utility that can get you planted on this angle. And then once you're here, you'll just sit here the rest of the round. It's so much info that allows your team to rotate, and it's great for picks. The next setup is one that should only be used once, at most twice a game. It's best with the save round where you have a shorty and headhunter, and timing is key. You can use your instincts and play off enemies' footsteps, or what I prefer is using the trip and playing off of that. Even better, you could get your teammate to combo utility with your trip to help you swing. These next 2 setups are just decent setups to mix it up. Any weapon is fine. Moving on to the attack side, we have to talk about the lurking situation. For the B push, there's no problem. You can trip the choke point and hold mid.
And on it.
Where's
They
this
found
supposed
my
to be the
trap.
wingman thingy?
Au revoir, frérot.
Gotta be able to.
So close.
Oh my god, he's going.
One enemy remaining.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
our
my
aiming
God.
facility. That was fucking quick.
Yo, I was
Oh
just...
no, I got 4, that's why. What?
But when your team's pushing A, there's a problem. There's no way to safely trip all the lanes on the B site. You can push up to place a trip after the barrier and then rotate mid, but the problem is the enemy can push you, and you are really late to mid. On top of that, if you place your trip and then rotate through spawn instead, you're even later to mid, giving up way too much map control. I have found that if you're going to lurk mid, you can just place your trip elbow, as flankers are more inclined to take the fastest route. However, they may pick up on this and go through spawn, leaving your team in a bad position. On B site, there are only 2 setups that I want to cover. The first one is a part of the support role. It is best with a long range weapon. Since smokes aren't quite enough to completely cover the chokes, it'll be your job to make up for it. Pick an angle and tell your team you're holding it. Ideally, your team will plant for you as well. For a post-plant setup, you have this corner. This is a hard angle for retakers to clear without exposing themselves, and it allows for extreme aggression. I only recommend this setup if you're at a man disadvantage and are looking to make something happen. On A site, there's only one setup that I want to show. It has two variations though. The first one is great for any buy, and it's meant to be a second entry where you play back in main for post plant, where your teammates hopefully planted for you. You can stay and play off angles looking for picks before you TP to your post plant position. Make sure you place your trip deep enough so the enemy can't flank you and shoot you without hitting your trip first. The variation of this setup will be a shotgun or eco round setup, where you plan to push and sit in the smoke nest trying to get a pick. Instead of placing it on the box, you'd place it here. And taking sight, you would shift up the rope into the smoke. When the smoke goes down, you have to TP though. And there's your chamber starter guide for the map. It's important to try to build on these setups as people have different playstyles that suit different setups. I also left out most of the attack setups as they're all pretty straightforward if you've watched my comprehensive chamber guide that's much more helpful. So check that out if you're still struggling on attack or want a deeper look into Chambers Agent. See you next time.